Hey everyone, welcome back to my channel. If you are new here, then my name is Rosie and I'm a recent graduate of the University of Oxford. Today's video is such a requested video and I don't know why I haven't done it before now, but we're doing it now. It is November now and we are entering interview season. That's right, Christmas doesn't start till after interview season, unfortunately for you Year 13s applying to Oxford. So I'm here to try and get you through that period as smoothly as possible. I am going to be giving you 5 main tips for interview preparation. Some I did and some I didn't, and I'm just saying them because other people did them or I wish I did them. And then there's going to be a few other pointers which aren't really tips, but they'll help, hopefully. I started preparing for my interview probably as soon as I got offered one, which was the 13th of November. My interviews were on the 9th to the 12th of December. They were at Hertford College. I actually vlogged it and I will link it in the description so you can see kind of what I actually did during the interviews. But in this video I'm just going to try and discuss some of the things that I did to prepare. So number 1, and this is probably the most important one, and that is to make sure you know your personal statement. Forwards, backwards, inside, outside, etc, etc. Because they will ask you about it and they might not ask you directly like, you mentioned this, tell us about it, but they will take inspiration from it. I did Archaeology and Anthropology, and so in my personal statement on the first line I had written about which book I had read from a very specific kind of period in ancient prehistory, really old prehistory. It was like human evolution, and I'd linked it to a book, and that's a separate issue, I'll talk about that in a minute. But it's the fact that because I'd picked up on this time period, 2 of the 3 different colleges that I was interviewed at brought up the fact that I had talked about this specific time period, and I wanted to know why I'd chosen it, what I liked about it, and kind of what interested me most and what I wanted to learn. Yeah, make sure you've read around if you've decided to pick a favourite area. If you have talked about any work experience or volunteering, make sure that you can back up why that will help you at university, and particularly help you in an Oxford University teaching setting, and that is in tutorials, in lectures, but particularly tutorials, and then ultimately your exams at the end. I went on a dig, and it was a very modern dig, so it was kind of 1700s and 1800s. It was a big mill and we were uncovering the mill, and I was asked about it because I was asked about the practicalities of archaeology, and they're not expecting you to have done all of this stuff before, but if you've written about it then they want to know why you've written about it, and you just need to make sure you've got an answer to these kind of, oh, you've chosen to do an archaeological dig of a mill, how is that going to be applicable to the archaeology of prehistoric Greece, or something niche that they don't think you know anything about, but they can quite easily see how you're problem solving in your mind. And that is the main reason they're doing these interviews, is to just hear you think out loud and hear that problem solving that you've got. Writing about your EPQ in your personal statement, again, is likely to be brought up. Mine was in 1 out of 3 colleges. They just wanted to know why I'd chosen that subject, why I thought it was a good subject for an EPQ, and how I could transfer those skills onto my degree. I hadn't actually started writing my EPQ yet, so it was very difficult to formulate a solid answer, but the question that I was asked was mainly about why I thought it was a good idea as a research proposal. And I assume that's because they're looking for kind of way in the distance when you write a dissertation. They want to know your process of choosing a subject and the evaluative possibilities and your investigatory Yeah.
You could.
I think I talked about how doing an EPQ would then help me with my essays once I got to university, and I'm learning to research independently and develop my evaluation skills and my source analysis, and I'm pretty sure that was a sufficient answer. Basically, just don't go into your interview having thrown your personal statement aside and not looked at it since you submitted it, because that really is shooting yourself in the foot. Now, number two is Number two is about reading. You should be doing some reading for your interview, considering the entire degree at Oxford,
If you're doing a subject like mine,
is reading. Now, I read these two books that I still have. I read this one, I never finished it. I think my page turn is still in here from where I got up to. Oh yes, there it is. Now, it's only page 92, so I haven't read all of it, and I remember reading this in my freeze. Actually, you know what? I need to read this because I think this would be really helpful for my masters. I also read this, and this is the book that I was saying was on the first line of my personal statement, so of course they asked me about it. This book is called From Lucy to Language, and it is by Donald Johansson. Oh yeah, look, we'll open it on this page, isn't it nice? So this is what I did in my free periods at sixth form. I went through, I highlighted pretty cool facts, and I wrote notes at the side. I basically just picked out bits that I thought were really interesting. I didn't read all of it by a long stretch. I would suggest that you go through the books that you've mentioned, or even just read like a summary or an academic review that you might find on the internet, and then you can find some arguments that have already been made about the text, and then maybe formulate your own reasons why you've chosen it, why maybe it's not the best thing to have chosen, and then just kind of form an opinion that you can deliver in your interview. They'll just disagree with you to see what answer you come out with and how you can back it, and they do that in tutorials as well. And this interview is basically just a tutorial. You have a back and forth. They might say, right, explain to me why you've argued this. Then they'll come back and say, well, actually in my research, blah blah blah, and you just have to keep on that thinking out loud and the back and forth academic discussion. What I would do with these books that I didn't do is actually mark out pages with really useful facts, particularly things that you're especially interested in. So I would mark that out. I would then go and do a bit of extra research on it, just take some notes, find some articles, some names that I could throw in there and impress people with, and do that for 3 or 4 different topics, just to make sure you've got several areas where you're quite in depth in what you know. And whether it's right or not, it just shows that you are kind of self-sufficient in research and you're already starting to gain those skills. Number 3 is to try and make sure that you are as solid as you can be on your A-level subjects. And I'm not meaning the A2 part of that, I mean the A-level that you did in your first year of sixth form, because they did ask me on it, and that's not uncommon. I remember going to a talk at a local college near me when I was in year 12 about to go to the interview, and they were saying that you need to be solid on your A-level knowledge because they might ask you about it, particularly if it's a subject that you haven't studied at A-level that you want to do. So they need to try and find ways to assess how you'd be good at your chosen subject from how you answer questions about your A-levels. And for me, that was these 2 tutors asking me about my sociology. It was indirect. It wasn't a straight up, oh, tell me about your A-level sociology. They had a teddy, and they were asking me what I could infer about the owners from the teddy. And this obviously is kind of evidence analysis, which I would use in essays now if I was talking about artifacts. So they were just trying to see how you responded to that sort of question. And with the teddy, I remember mentioning that it looked like it could belong to a child, which I think is a pretty straightforward response to someone giving you a teddy. And they came straight back with, right, so you've done sociology, tell me about the sociology of childhood. And they could tell that I was struggling. Like, there was absolutely no way that I looked confident answering that question. And you know, that's fine, because they don't expect you to be confident in that situation. It's incredibly daunting. They know they're throwing you off. They just want to see how you bounce back from being thrown under the bus, essentially, and receiving a question that you definitely weren't expecting. If you are applying for a subject that you are already studying at A-level, then I would be unsurprised if they asked you about your A-level work, because if you're not kind of up to date on your A-level work, how are you going to make that jump to degree? I know for engineering they give you some maths problems that you have to do in the interview, and they're not looking for you to be like super fast or even to get them right. They just want to know what steps you take when you're faced with a problem just off the cuff and when it's a new thing. Tip number 4 is definitely not a necessity in any way. I didn't do it, and I thought the people who did do it at the time were odd. Yeah, but in retrospect it probably was quite a good technique to use. Familiarise yourself with the tutors that are going to be interviewing you, not like their birthday, their favourite colour, seeing like their research interest, just because that might be something that they're inclined to ask about, because they know a lot about it and it's their favourite subject. Academics just love to only ask about their favourite subject because it's their life. What I would do is go on the tutors pages on the Oxford website, try and work out who is like the course coordinator. It should tell you on the different pages, and they then are likely to be the ones that are interviewing you. You can't guarantee it. You know, someone might be ill, someone might be on sabbatical, you might get a random interviewer, someone new. You know, that is something that you can't prepare for. Now the last tip, number 5, is, I think it's quite an obvious one, is to practice. Now I don't mean go out of your way to try and do a mock interview, because I know that is not something that everyone can do, and not something that everyone's school offers. There are videos on YouTube of mock interviews that you can watch just to try and see the format of the interview. Don't take the questions as solid, because they're not gonna ask questions on YouTube that they're gonna use in real life. The main thing is that it is not a job interview, and it is nothing like a job interview. It's an academic discussion. It is not like a normal interview. I think the best way to do it is not necessarily to practice out loud, but to practice the things that go with the interview, so like answering source questions, finding key points in an unseen text, because most subjects will have to be given some, like a text or some reading to do before they go in, and then you might get asked about it in the interview. I know I did in all of my interviews. So just kind of practice this unseen text analysis. With languages, practice your language, make sure you know all of the basics, and kind of practice your unseen text analysis in your chosen language. Try mind mapping thought trains. There are example interview questions on the website, and those example interview questions could go in the middle of a mind map, and then you just balloon off your thought trains. Don't think of a straight answer, think of different things that you could possibly say, and write down everything that you're thinking in almost like a flowchart of how you got to that final decision, because it's that they're actually going to be looking at. If you are lucky enough to have a school that has a lot of Oxbridge experience, then absolutely do a mock interview. Like, why not? Everything's gonna help. If, like me, your school had no idea whatsoever, then it might be an idea to contact the local private school or a different state school that has a lot of Oxbridge applicants, because they might be able to arrange a mock interview for you. I went to my local private school it was every other Wednesday I did a club on kind of human evolution, and it just gave me so many more answers to possible questions that, you know, mostly were completely irrelevant, but it did make me feel more comfortable. They also gave me a mock interview, which was really kind of them. So yeah, don't be afraid to you know, get your head of sixth form or college to email a local school that might be able to help you. That is all of my main tips. I would just add on the end of that you should have an answer ready for when they say, why are you choosing Oxford? Or if you're doing Arc and Anth or another dual on a subject, why are you doing these subjects together? Why do you think they go together better? Why would you choose Oxford over another university? Because I did not have an answer to this, really. It was just kind of a, well, you know, it's Oxford, isn't it? They want a proper answer. I was asked that twice. You will be nervous. You won't be able to think straight. And this is one of the first questions they tend to throw at you. And it's meant to be kind of like easing you in. But in my experience, it just stressed me out. And the last thing is, do not worry about your clothes. If you want to know kind of what I wore in my interviews, then again, go and watch my interview vlog. I would say to wear work clothes. So like plain black trousers and a blouse for girls, and for boys a polo shirt and black trousers, or chinos and a polo shirt, or if you really want to go all out, then a shirt, but I think you'll just be uncomfortable and it's really not necessary. There are people that go in full suits and they are in no better stead than anyone else who are applying. I hope that my rambling was at least a little bit useful and maybe made you feel a bit more comfortable. Even just someone talking about it that isn't a teacher is nice, I think. So just know that it is okay to mess up. You know, I said some stupid things in my interview. We make mistakes, we mess up, but they're expecting that. They're expecting you to be not quite your best and jittery, and that is okay. They've been doing this for years and years. Good luck, you have got my best wishes. Please message me on Instagram or in the comments if you need to, and let me know in the comments if you have any more questions about interviews, because you know, there's so many questions that I could have covered and definitely haven't. So yeah, give this video a thumbs up if you enjoyed it, and hit that subscribe button. I literally have no idea what side it's going to be on. I still haven't worked that out, but it'll be somewhere down here. I will see you in my next video. Bye!